Hi, welcome back to this is Landscapes Part 2. In the last session we sort of started talking about introducing ourselves to the idea of doing landscapes, and we looked at views out of windows because most of us have window, and at the moment most of us stuck at home, so the views we are only really seeing most of the time are outside of our windows or front doors. So bearing this in mind, I'd like to carry on with the landscapes tutorial, and also still thinking that most of us are restricted to the views we can see. So while we're in this situation, I thought it's a good chance to practice doing landscapes that we can either get from photographs or things we can find on the internet. So what I want to do is look at images and views we can get online as such, or we have ourselves. So for this session in particular, and probably some of the following sessions in particular dealing with landscapes, if you have photos of landscapes or something you can download or look at on a screen, obviously bearing in mind copyright and stuff like that, that would be the first thing we need, a collection of images showing landscapes. Okay, so by landscapes I also mean any view. So it could be city, beachscape, hills, trees, whatever. But something ideally where you can see the land kind of going into the distance, not just a flat sort of pose. So I'm just going to now explain what we're going to do, or what you're going to try and do, and then probably do some time lapses again to demonstrate. And today's a relatively short explanation, but hopefully the point being the more of these you practice, then before we go on through and progress into different stages, the more you can learn by just reproducing the same thing. So I'll explain it and then show you a couple of times, and hopefully let you sort of run away with it and experiment with it. And then the next session in Landscapes Part 3, we'll sort of again grow it and add other things to that. So it's progressing all the time. So like in the last exercise, I'd like you to start with doing this kind of thing. So we did this in Landscapes Part 1, and it's just to get you going. It's just on a random piece of paper, draw a load of different shapes, just to get you going. It's like sort of a stretching before you do exercise. Right, so now you've kind of warmed up. Basically, as I said to you, if you can get loads of images, the more the merrier, the more you can play with. Now what we want to produce from these is what I call micro landscapes, and they're tiny little landscape versions of each of these, and I'll show you one in a minute. I'll just choose one of these randomly. Now what we're going to do is, like on the last demonstration, we're going to just look for the major shapes. So we're going to break down the landscape into the major shapes that we can see, and I'll explain a bit more about those shapes this time. So some of them are sort of what you might call positive shapes, because there's an obvious shape there, and some might be negative shapes, might be the sky space or the space in between objects. So don't get too worried about that, but basically I'll demonstrate this with one photograph, and then we'll look back over it, and then hopefully you can try your own, and then we'll go from there. So, as I said, this is what I call a micro landscape, and it's one of the first things I do in groups to sort of to get people to use to sort of doing bigger landscapes, which are obviously more potentially harder. But the point is to prove how actual, if you can draw at this level, you can kind of draw at any level. And this is basically, I mean, I did it in pencil first, and then I did pen. I wouldn't normally do it in pen, but I just did it in pen because I wanted to sort of, to darken the line so you can see it better on the camera. But what I did, I mean, my point is that is a triangle, okay? There's another triangle here, so that's another triangle there. I mean, if I draw it on there, you can see that's the basis of the shapes on there are reproducing. So, most people can draw a triangle and draw a kind of, what's it called? I can't think. It's some sort of four-sided shape. I can't remember his name. And then you basically look for the simple shapes, and you reproduce them. Okay, so they're the shapes, drawn very quickly, and that's how it reproduces. And that's basic. Oh, the other one is there around the poppies, okay? And then we've got another shape here, which is the kind of the shadow line, or the side of the corn. And then I put in those two, which is the furrow of the field, or the track. But the point is to take any view you can look at, and keep practicing this and drawing it. I mean, that's actually an A4 piece of paper. So that's, as you can see, is printed on A4 paper, and that's A4 folded, 4 times, and then drew around it to get my little square. And that means you can scale it easier. But the thing is to practice this with lots of different images, scenes, and just get used to drawing the shapes you see, and ideally in the position that they are. Okay, so the only difference I did on this one now is I just put in a bit of cross hatching, some basic shading to pick out the shapes, and then I just smeared a bit of red because I thought it was a bit of fun. But there you go. I thought it was quite artistic, but hey, what do I know? Anyway, the point is, this is the basis, I think, of all preliminary work when you're sketching, when you're doing landscapes and drawing outside. And just to give you an idea, this is sort of something in my own book. And it's, it's slightly bigger, but this is what I do when I go outdoors and do a picture of a view, and it's the same thing. It's just shapes, and there's a bit of hatching, and then obviously some notes, and I've made some observations down the side. But the clouds, fields, everything all the things on it are basic, simple shapes. Then a bit of hatching or etching, smearing the paint, paper, pencil around or whatever, gives it some sort of three-dimensional quality. And then this I'd hope to take and then turn into a picture and so on. But this is where we start, and so I'd like you to, if you can, try as many of these with as many different photographs you can from out of your own portfolio, or from your albums, family things, and if there are people in them, don't worry about that. Just people are shapes as well, but keep it simple. And then the next time, we'll again in part 3 of landscapes, we'll progress this on. But what I just want to remind you, what I'm trying for you to do is to give you confidence to learn from this kind of basic, simple level, and then progress forward rather than dropping you right in at the sort of the deep end. And I think if you can get these basic skills together at the start, then when views get more complicated, you'll have the confidence to do them and enjoy them. I hope you're enjoying these sessions, and you're starting to see, if you're doing more than one, that they kind of build up and they work together. The hope is that you build confidence and learn more about art and being an artist, basically. There you go. That's what I kind of hope you gain from them. Obviously, these are free, and there's no charge for them. And please share them with your friends and people you know, or anybody who might you think benefit from them. But I just want to say, I'm obviously an art tutor, and I do work in groups and one-to-one. So if anybody does want some tutorial or a bit more help, please email me or link me or message me through Facebook, and I'll see if I can help you. Anyway, I'll carry on with probably landscapes session 3 next time, and then we'll probably come back on to the other things like colour and line work and so on. Take care, be safe, see you soon.